Well, the way to make $1 million is to write a book about how to make $1 million and then sell it to suckers that are silly enough to buy it thinking that I know the answer. Cynical or overly skeptical people almost never win. You will never see me open a Patreon account for this. I don't need the money from the content. There are a ton of content creators out there, however, that are charlatans and they fake it till they make it, and they go rent a Lamborghini for a day, or they go sit on a private jet that never even leaves the ground, and they're a big entrepreneur and making all the money, and then they say, sign up for my class and I'll teach you how to do it too. So we had a message come through the comments that roundabout said something along the lines of, I am following along but very skeptically, kind of as what's the catch and is there going to be something for sale? Just like waiting for, okay, you're tricking us into something and then you're going to bam, pull it on us, send me money. So this is then the perfect time to give you a little bit of a story about how I kind of got started, but then also let's make a mention that cynical or overly skeptical people almost never win. And the reason for that is if you're very cynical, you're very shut off, and you're very skeptical about everything, then you're constantly looking for a reason as to why it doesn't work, and you're being negative about it as opposed to being positive about it. So if you're always looking for a catch, you're saying that this kind of thing doesn't work, then you're never going to advance into a place that it does work. I've never in my life ever seen a successful cynical person. But to answer that question specifically, currently, there is nothing for sale. I am doing the videos to help other people. At some point, we'll probably get enough of a subscriber count that I can monetize the channel, and that's probably a very low amount of money anyway. In the future, there probably will be a book. I write books for a lot of different topics in primitive archery and atlatl and hunting, and there's probably going to be a book about this as well. In fact, I know there is because I've already started it. And then if people want to down the line, they can book a class with me or a course, something that's more curated. But the business model that I truly believe in is giving all the value first. So we do the videos to answer questions and help people along their journey. There's never anything that you have to buy. You always have the choice to say, I don't want to buy anything, and that's perfectly fine. So if we get to the point where we continue the channel and we get 50, 100 episodes, and there's a whole lot of questions being asked, and you have to really go through all of these episodes, there are going to be business-minded people that say, okay, I have gained a lot from your channel. It's really accelerated my own business or in my own job or my personal finances, and I would like the next step, but I can't get them from these individual videos, or there's 50 or 100, so now I got to go through and spend all this time watching all of these videos again to try to get those individual pieces. And most people would say, can I just call and do a consult with you direct? Because this way they're going to get the most value exactly curated for their situation. That's a possibility in the future. However, nobody ever has to do that because all of the information is going to be given here for free. You're just going to have to hunt for it or wait for your question to come up. So that's how the business model is really going to kind of roll. And like I said, I don't specifically need that anyway. That's usually just the way the business rolls. I'm perfectly fine just giving the information for free if it helps people, and then if later on it decides this, hey, nobody's really watching or not paying attention, I have no problem not doing the videos either. Not a big deal. Now, let's talk about my story and how I got started in business, and it started from a very cynical and skeptical position. So my dad was an employee, and he was a great man in many ways, but as far as financial success goes, or even, I mean, he's the paycheck to paycheck kind of guy. That's really how he was. He worked at the same place the entire time since he moved to Florida. He worked at the same place, and he ended up working into a position where he was kind of a number two of the company, but he was still just a paycheck employee, and there's nothing wrong with being a paycheck employee. I'd love to talk about being a very high earning paycheck employee in the future. However, he was one that was very skeptical and cynical towards books on how to become wealthy. And he always used to kind of joke about it, saying, well, the same thing that we hear from many other people. They say, well, the way to make $1 million is to write a book about how to make $1 million and then sell it to suckers that are silly enough to buy it thinking that I know the answer. Well, if you do that, then you're obviously very nefarious, and that's not going to work anyway. It's the law of the universe that when you don't know what you're talking about, people figure it out really fast. Sure, early on, maybe some books were put together like that. Just like the whole, when the internet came out, it was like, okay, if I can get 1 million people to send me $1, then I will be a millionaire. if you're looking for anything to get rich quick, chances are it doesn't work out anyway. So that's where a lot of that stereotype came from, and a lot of people in general don't look into books as a viable resource. I was one of those people, and because I had learned that from my dad growing up, the joke was, to make $1 million, you write a book on how to become a millionaire, and then you sell the book for $1 million. And it's like, that's the distrust that people have. So when I really found myself in a situation where I was not being successful, I was not advancing, life was a struggle, I finally just came to the realization going, other people had to have written books about this because somebody has to care. They want to share their story. Because I did have a mentor that really wasn't as much of a mentor at the time because I didn't know he was, but I've talked about him before and I'll be talking about him again. And he gave me a lot of direction, but for whatever reason in my head, I was just like, he's just some old rich guy that's out of touch with reality. I don't even know how he got his money. He just got lucky. That's what everybody thinks. Oh, he just got lucky. That's the cynical attitude towards it, right? And you're like, well, it can't be me. He's just lucky, blah, blah. He's probably a bad guy. He probably stepped all over everybody else to get to his position. This is very rarely the case of how people get wealthy. You usually have to have a very good rapport with people to get wealthy, unless you are doing bad things, but bad things catch up with people over time. So anyway, I started thinking when I was really at a low point, saying, I really want to read one of these books, but people are going to make fun of me. And I was like, well, my dad always said that, it was all just a scam anyway. And I was like, so what are they going to scam me out of, like $15 or $20 to buy a book? I was like, worst case scenario, I spend $15, $20, $30 and I buy a book and I read it, okay? And if I do that, if I get something from the book, it was a positive. The worst case scenario is I spent $15, $20 and then spent the time reading it. If that's the worst that could happen, then that's a pretty good gamble. Now, if the best that could happen is I became a millionaire, well, shoot, it actually worked. Wouldn't that be crazy? And I was like, well, that's probably not how it's going to work. And then I thought about it going, the position I'm in, not very good. Me being cynical about trying this is kind of a problem. If I'm not willing to invest a little bit of time and a little bit of money into myself, then I'm never going to be anywhere. You're going to have to take some chances. And I'm like, this is a small chance. But I also thought, maybe I can't be a millionaire. Maybe I don't want to do the things that it takes to become a millionaire. But I thought, even if the book had practical scenarios or maps or whatever it took to get there, could I possibly get one-tenth of that $1 million? Would that change my life? 1/10 of $1 million is $100,000. And I thought, if I could only absorb 1/10 of this book, that would still be $100,000. And I thought, you know what? That's a gamble I am willing to take. So I stopped being cynical, and I didn't even know what book to look for. I got on Google and I searched up. I was actually, at the time, a little bit more interested in something like a rental house, because I'm like, you know what? Maybe, because we had just bought our house that we were living in, and I had saved up a little bit of money, and we were able to kind of pay cash for it, borrowed a little bit of money from my sister and brother-in-law to finish out being able to take the purchase on a little tiny house that was really run down. And I was like, if I could just figure out how to really make some money, and I thought, you know what, a lot of people make money in real estate, let me get into that. So I ordered a book on how to make money in rentals and real estate. It's not ultimately the direction that I went, but I took that first step. When the book came, I basically hid it from everyone. I didn't even want to tell my wife that I was reading a book, because what happens is you're afraid that people are going to make fun of you for reading books to better yourself. And I can promise you this, only losers make fun of people for reading books to better themselves. I have never once in my life seen a successful person make fun of or down somebody else for trying to learn to better their own life. So I was hiding the book and reading it. Now, ultimately, that book did not turn into what I wanted it to turn into, because that wasn't the direction I was going to go, but it gave me the confidence to then pick up another book. In fact, that book was sent to me by another mentor, so my buddy RD that I had met previously on a hunt. He sent me a book, and I was like, it's another one of these books, and I don't know. And I was at that time really starting to come alive with it. And I was like, you know what? I think that there was something with the other book. I'm gonna read this one. And then I started reading that one as well. And I read that one, and it got the ball rolling a little bit. So next thing you know, I'm listening to audiobooks or buying. I've got a whole library of dozens of books that I've read, and now it's one of the things on this channel that I'm like, I've read all the books so you don't have to, but I still encourage everybody to read the books. But so many people then I talk to later that I'm like, hey, I've got this great book and I want to share it with you guys on social media. So I'd post about it, and then the cynical comments that I would get about it. And I'm like, how ridiculous is this? It's like, they're like, oh, I don't do self-help books or whatever. And I'm like, there's such great information in here. Even if you don't jive with everything that's in the book, you're going to gain something from it. You're not going to get dumber for doing it, but it's this distrust of people to say, well, he must be trying to scam me out of something, that because of that, he's not going to be able to scam me out of my $15 for this book. I'm not helping him scam anybody. Where reality is, if you read the book and you implement it, the chance of you growing is significantly increased. Now, unfortunately, my dad died before he ever saw that I got into books and that grew a very successful business, but he always did say he wanted more for me than he had for himself. And luckily, I was able to overcome the skepticism and the cynicism over reading financial and personal betterment books, and I dove into them very heavily, and still do. I'm constantly looking for new books to read. And because of that, I am continuing to learn. But again, you will never find somebody that's successful that digs on somebody else for wanting to better their life. Constant education is necessary, and you can't break through that wall and listen to somebody else if you're constantly worried about what other people are going to think, or that you're skeptical that somebody's trying to scam you out of money. So to rewind then back to that, yes, at some point I probably will have something for sale, but it's not like, here's the difference in that. My business model is I give the value first, as I explained. So you come, you get value from it. If you implement the information that I give you and your business grows, you're going to validate that and say, okay, he helped out quite a bit. Now I want more. I want something personal. I want something curated. If you want to come back at that point, then the door's open to do that. The difference is when you get somebody, and this is where most people are probably thinking, that I would be standing in front of a room talking to people, convincing them to sign up for a course or an investment without giving any value first. So I think that's where we kind of see that they used to get rooms of people together and then say, we have this new, like the old pyramid scheme things that left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths. You'd go to an event, you'd sit there and you'd have a guy that's dressed all fancy, and he would talk to you about he's a millionaire and you're going to be one too. And if you just buy into this program, if you sign up today, you're going to get all these materials and we're going to help you and you're going to be a millionaire. And they're asking for money first before value. That's where a lot of the stigma of this starts from. But the real business model here and how it actually works, because I've followed it as well, is we give the value first. I give you all the information you need on this channel. You still don't have to buy anything at the end of the day. And quite frankly, you will never see me open a Patreon account for this. I don't need the money from the content. There are a ton of content creators out there, however, that are charlatans, and they fake it till they make it, and they go rent a Lamborghini for a day, or they go sit on a private jet that never even leaves the ground, and they're a big entrepreneur and making all the money, and then they say, sign up for my class and I'll teach you how to do it too. That is not the correct way to go about it. I will never ask for your donation money. I will never ask you to buy anything. But in the future, there will be a book, and there likely will be curated courses for people that choose to buy it. And outside of that, the channel is for you to use completely for free to better your life. And when your life gets better and better, then either you don't need this information anymore and you're off and running, or you're going to want something else. And either way is perfectly fine by me. So I hope that helps you decide which direction to go. If you want to start reading books and listening to this channel and listening to other channels, or are we still going to be skeptical and cynical and say, nah, none of it works, I'm just going to go back and continue to do the same exact thing that I'm always going to do and never going to grow, and because that's the way it is and it can never be me, and all rich people are nefarious and always have to step on somebody else to get ahead? You're going to have to make that decision. I would say anybody that's standing at that crossroad right now, you can look down that road and say, am I actually going to get anywhere, or is it worth a little bit of time that it might take to listen to content or read content that may actually change my life? That's your choice to make. That's the end of the show. Catch you on the next one.